Hello. In today's podcast, we'll be discussing the movie Parasite, and we're going to begin with talking about the acting and the script. For me personally, at least, I think the acting in this movie was really great, and it really showed the class divide and how kind of society is set up in a way where like poor people are forced to fight amongst each other and do whatever they have to do to survive, essentially, because the main family is kind of at first portrayed as like these con artists and these scammers, but as you get further in the movie, you realize that they're really doing this to survive.
Yeah,
and the way
you got it. Oh, okay. Yeah, I feel like especially with like the script in Parasite, the screenwriter did a good job of like building progression and telling that story, and not just making it like a cliche movie about class divide or disenfranchised groups within a community. Like it kind of was like a build up throughout the plot. And I really enjoyed that, as well as the foreshadowing. I feel like that happened within the script, even just with the name of the movie, like everything kind of circled back to the original plot and the main plot line. So I feel like that was a good part with the screenplay and the script writing.
Yeah, I felt like you know how he had said with The Rock that it was like metaphorical. Like I feel like a lot of what was included in like the script was metaphorical. Like even like she was saying with the Parasite title, and like with the progression, the like fact that or like the idea of smelling different, like and how that kept like playing into everything, like how like even the little kid of the family was like smelling them and saying you smell weird. Like I think he used that really well to just kind of show like this like subtlety in class divide that was present there.
In terms of the acting, one thing that I really had noticed and liked was that, yes, they're actors and they're playing a character, but at the same time, the characters were also acting and like pretending to be like the roles that they clearly weren't. So it was just cool to see how they're like kind of acting like twice at the same time. They're acting as the poor family, but they're also like acting as like the university student or the housekeeper. So that was really, really cool to see. And I think the actors did a good job at playing both parts.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how like their alter egos kind of had like American names, or at least they like when the guy was first like the tutor was first going there, like she was like, we're just gonna call you Kevin, basically. And then like she had when he was introducing like his sister as somebody else, like he was like, oh, her name is Jessica, like she went to like the school in Illinois, like, and the mom, when she had been talking about all these American products she was buying and how like sometimes the rich people would just start speaking English. Like I thought that was like an interesting little just like piece to throw in there, like a little commentary on how like English is kind of like elitist almost in countries where it's harder to have access to like the opportunity to go to America, or not even opportunity, but like just to go to America.
Yeah, I agree because they could have chosen like any backstory for their made up personas, but I think it was intentional that they chose specifically Jessica to be from America. It seemed like that would like help her have more like standing, like the wife would trust her more. It's like, oh, you went to school in America, then it's like you must be smart, you must be like cultured and knowledgeable. So I think that was a good point. And I also really liked the acting of the wife, because I feel like she was a central role in establishing like how the line is portrayed by like the rich people in the society. And I think she did a good job at playing like a kind of like aloof rich person, I guess you could say.
Yeah, definitely. And like this kind of like transitions into like the camera and editing. But I'd seen in this like one video them talking about how like how they kept talking about the line, like don't cross the line, and how that line would be like metaphorical and like the story, but also like the physical line that they would kind of have in the camera shots. Like there was this one shot where uh the housekeeper was going to like get the mom and she had or the wife and she had her head down on the table. And in the shot there was like this line in the glass between like the two of them. There were just a bunch of shots like that where it was like he would kind of impose a line between like these two like separate like people from different classes.
I actually didn't notice that, but that was a very good observation. I was actually just going to talk about where the camera work. I think when we were viewing inside the house of the poor family, we're always looking from inside, inside out, looking at everything above them, everything they could see out that window. But when we're looking at the rich family, we're looking from outside, we're getting a different perspective. And I feel like that was really important.
Yeah, I didn't notice that actually, but I think he did a lot of like really cool stuff with the camera. Just even like the way he would be kind of like zooming slowly or like the pans he would do. Like I feel like he did a lot of shots where it was like zoomed in and then kind of like would pan in a different direction to show somebody like walking down or like coming towards them or something else happening. Or like he'd show like half their faces or like just the bodies when they'd be talking. Like I noticed that a few times. And then there was this one scene that was like when like the scene where they were kind of making their plan or executing their plan to like sabotage the housekeeper. Like there was this part where it went from him like saying it to the wife and back like into the house where he's practicing the lines he's gonna say. And like as he's doing it, like as his son goes like cut to like kind of correct him on how he wants him to deliver it, like the scene literally like glitches. Like he like cut two frames together or something, and right when he said cut, like it like the scene itself cut. I thought that was just like really cool.
And one scene that really stuck out to me in terms of like how it was edited was when the mom was telling the story of what happened to the boy in the first grade and how he was in the kitchen and then looked up and he saw the man from the basement just staring at him. And first of all, that scene kind of freaked me out a little bit because it was really intense and it was all dark and all you see was just the man's white eyes staring at him over the top of the stairs. And also that part kind of like it made sense to me because if you really like look at the boy's drawings, a lot of his drawings kind of resembled like the large eyes of the man looking over him. So I think that scene in particular did a good job of like connecting the rest of the movie with the boy's experiences and the things that he was drawing.
Yeah, and I also think it was another show of kind of like that line because the man is coming up from the basement from the stairs and he doesn't cross the stairs because he sees the little boy there. So it's kind of like even more emphasizing on the divide between the rich and the poor. And I also liked the scene with Jessica when she was explaining her art therapy like techniques to the mother and telling her like, oh, this was the trauma he had because he drew this shape in the same corner of the pictures. And she was really like selling it. And then it cut to her afterwards when Kevin asked her like, what did you do? Because she was crying. She was basically like, she made it up. And that kind of showed me that a lot of the times, like, you think that rich people have like a higher standard of knowledge, but it was so easy for them, all of them, to completely fool the whole family just with stuff they Googled, and they didn't even have to go to school for that information.
Yeah, I think the movie did a good job at like showing the naivety of people, regardless of the financial and like socioeconomic place they're in, like you said, Diamond. And just like these people literally like having this whole bright, brilliant plan as to becoming parasites and like leeching leeching off of that family. And it was like, it didn't happen overnight, and it took a while for, them to get in the position that they wanted to kind of become that family in a sense. And like, even when the family, like went out of town and everything, then they transitioned to acting like it was their house and their life and stuff like that. It kind of just shows that like, it's unfortunate that no matter how much materials or material wealth you have, like at the end of the day, if you don't have enough street smart or just common knowledge, then you're still liable and you're still able to get played and conned in the way that the Park family did.
Right. And even the title Parasite still kind of works both ways, because the poor family can be seen as a parasite for coming in and like kind of taking over their home by eliminating all the other workers. But then the rich family can be seen as the parasites because they're using the labor of all of these poor people to maintain their house. And without them, the house would basically be a mess. If nobody has any other comments, we can start discussing costumes and missing scene. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, with costumes, you notice that the rich family, the wife was always dressed up like she was going somewhere. The husband was always in, not a suit, but like a button-up shirt at least, and slacks. And when it came to the poor family, they kind of just, had to go and find clothes to look better, but really and truly, they're always comfortable. They always wore like, just really comfortable clothing, especially inside their house. And they would have to go out and find stuff to look better to go to work. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really like interesting how in order to be like approved by the rich people, they had to almost, I don't want to say appear to be rich themselves, but they had to dress appropriately. Like if they went in like, let's say what they would normally wear, like they wouldn't be seen as, I guess, credible. So they had to dress the part in order to make it seem believable.
Right. And it just, through the costumes, it kind of showed how much of a performance everything was, not just for the poor family who was trying to get jobs here, but also for the rich family. It's like everything is for appearances. Like, even I remember when the wife was holding a party for her child, and she was telling them on the phone like, oh, it's just casual, you don't have to get dressed up. But it's like, it was kind of implied like, oh, I'm just saying this, you really do have to come dressed up, because no one would come in like regular casual clothes, because it's all about showing like your wealth and making sure people know like you belong here.
Yeah, and even like the way that like the editing style and the color palettes and templates, like it was very just dark and gray. And obviously, like that's something that we saw in Get Out to a certain extent, but I just feel like in this film, it was amplified to the extreme, especially kind of like when the movie started, it was more like a little lighter and satirical in a sense, and not as deep and heavy. But obviously, as the film progressed, it became a little more serious, and the viewers were able to get, or we were able to get like a deeper understanding as to the thickness of the plot. And I feel like as time went on, things got a little more like dreary and gray, and it really manifested into the overall like tone and mood of the film. And I feel like that um, is related to mise en scène. Yeah.
Yeah, off of that, like I don't know if this is part of the mise en scene or if this is more like music, but I noticed like there was this one, like when he was talking to his friend who was kind of like getting him the tutoring job. It's like when it was kind of like the first like kind of unsettling moment that happened was when he was saying like, do I have to pretend to be a college student to like all the sound in the background like stopped and there was this loud like bus that drove by and it was just kind of like jarring, like it felt out of place for like the tone of the movie so far. Like the movie ended up getting like super like dark. So I think it was just kind of like a little like just I don't know, like starting to set the tone a little bit.
Yeah, if nobody has any other comments on that, we can move on to your thoughts about the music.
Well, at first, like I wasn't really noticing music, but I don't know if it was just because I was so into the movie. But I know that around like the end scenes, like when the man comes and starts stabbing people at the party, like the music is really intense and it's kind of calm throughout the majority of the film because I guess like it wasn't really that hectic, but once things started to really pick up, that's when the music intensified and it made you like really like get into the scene and what was going on. And all this dramatic music just like emphasizes like how dramatic the scene is and what's actually going on.
Yeah, like Tiffany said, like I didn't really notice any music for a while. Like it was mostly just like ambient like sounds. Like it would just be like the like wherever they are, it would just be those noises. Which like the noises would kind of like change like the tone of the noises would change based on like where they were. But like for the music itself, like the first time I really even noticed the music was in like the sabotaging scene they were doing. And then it was like this like orchestra, kind of like classical music. But yeah, I think the just the way that kind of like picked up was another thing that was like shifting the narrative.
Yeah, I agree. The music, it really was like the tone and like the pace of the music, I guess if that makes sense, rather than the songs themselves. It's like y'all were saying when like the part where he stabs the dad, it kind of, I remember it sounding like kind of like something was ringing in your ear, and that's when it really like brought to your attention how like severe the scene was, and like the music when they were coming up with their plans to get rid of each of the workers there, it really matched the mood of how like kind of intense, and that sometimes it would be kind of like playful when they were like joking amongst themselves about how they like got rid of their plans to get rid of the workers. All right, and we can move on to the final topic of the overall psychological impact of the film.
I just feel like the main takeaway um, well, I didn't really think about it until now, but I think it was kind of like the director and the writer's attempt at like um, opening Americans' eyes through a different perspective, especially with the conversation we had about the American names like Jessica and stuff like that. And obviously, like class division is rampant through all cultures or whatever, but it's like an obvious reason as to why the director and screenwriter chose to have that nuance in the film. And I feel like the leeching and the like violence and the parasite reference kind of just makes it seem like people of the lower class are negative and have all these bad and negative connotations. But obviously, especially with us, like, well, I'm pretty sure most of us are living in DC right now. And, you know, it's a big homeless population here. It kind of just puts everything into perspective. And it kind of makes you like feel whether or not you should be upset with the Kims or like if you feel bad for them and just people in general who are in situations like that, like kind of reasoning with it and toying back and forth with the fact of whether or not like they could go different routes to secure better financial positions. But I think the film like made it a lot more interesting than just showing like a typical homeless or typical low income family and adding all these like plot twists and foreshadowing and all that. I think was smart to show an even bigger message. And I guess that's why the film is so highly raved about and considered even like the best movie. Like I was reading things and a lot of people have rated this movie like the best movie ever and stuff. So
Yeah, I agree. And I think a big part of it was that, you know, we spent the whole time kind of trying to decipher which one was actually the parasite. Like, was it the poor family? Because I feel that most of the times we would think that, but also, you know, we realized that, well, this rich family really has just come in and they're just surviving off of all the work that other people are doing for them. So it was kind of a conflict in that way. Yeah, that's like that.
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of symbolized like the director was critiquing like capitalism and how it kind of turns people against each other. And also for me, what was really significant was the ending and how it basically gave you hope for a second that he was actually really able to pull it off. But we know in real life, due to like the capitalistic society, it's extremely hard to move from class positions. And if you're born poor, then you're more likely to stay poor. And at the end, it kind of just showed like the harsh reality that he was never going to be able to afford to buy the house and see his dad again, which was really, I think that really hit home like the entire message of the movie. All right, does anybody have any last thoughts before we close out? That's it. Okay, thank you for listening. And that's the end of our podcast.